All I had on me was my wallet and a cell phone with no service. After a couple of hours, we finally stopped. She opened up the back of the car just enough for me to jump out and scream at her. She didn't even bother to listen. She just got back in the driver's seat and drove off. I looked around to see where she left me. A church? In the middle of the woods? Yeah, no thank you. I literally threw a temper tantrum, like a child. After a few minutes of making a scene, a few nuns came out. A few of them spoke English and just explained that they were paid a lot of money to reform me. I tried to run away, but it became apparent that I had nowhere to go. After 3 hours of wandering around, lost, I showed back up to the church, defeated. The nuns didn't seem so surprised and gave me a change of clothes and a list of chores to do. If you told me I would have traded in my Prada bag and short skirts for church robes and a Bible, I would have never believed you. But there I stayed and grew quite accustomed to the church. I'd come to terms that this would be my life forever as I spent some years there, but one day, my life was about to turn upside down. Remember how I said there would be lots of corn? Well, we're getting there. We had a long day of tending to the garden and praying when I caught a glimpse of something I never thought I'd see again. No, it wasn't a laptop or indoor plumbing. It was a man. Apparently, he was delivering some supplies to the church. Normally, his mother did it, but she was sick today. He was going to rest a bit before he took off again on the long drive back to his house. He had to be about my age and was super fit and hot. He must not have seen so many young girls either, because he looked back at me with the same sort of fascination. He immediately came up to me and started to compliment me, saying I was much different than the other nuns. I was young and beautiful, and he was very attracted to me. I explained that I, too, was very attracted to him. When he said it was too bad I was a nun, I immediately corrected him, saying it was a long story. Before I could say anything else, the oldest, meanest nun interrupted us. She said it wasn't very ladylike to be talking to boys, and she dragged me away to do other chores. I was worried that was the last I'd ever see of the mysterious man. A couple of hours later, as I was chopping some firewood, I heard some whispers coming from behind a bush. It was the man from before. He told me that if I wanted, he would drive me far away from here. He told me to hide under the crops in the back of his truck while he distracted the nuns. Then, we just drove off. I was picking corn out of my clothes and hair for hours. Who knew my kidnapping would ruin corn for me? We drove for hours and hours, and I told him everything. He was incredibly kind and sympathetic and said he would do anything to help me. I asked if he had an internet connection at his house, which he did. Well, I didn't even waste a minute when we got to his door. I ran right for a computer and started to log into my Facebook and see what had happened. Most importantly, I wanted to know where Taylor was and who that mysterious woman was. Well, the most shocking thing about my Facebook account wasn't the thousands of missed messages. It was all the people sending their condolences. At first, I thought they were belated wishes about my father I never got to see. But the truth was much more disturbing. People thought I was dead. I used Facebook to call one of my dearest friends. She answered immediately and seemed so shocked to hear from me. But it can't be. You're dead. She started to cry. I explained everything that had happened to me with the strange woman and the monastery, and I asked why everyone thought I died. Apparently, Taylor told everyone I had gotten into an accident overseas and died. Since I was in a third world country, no one ever tried confirming the evidence. She had a death certificate and newspaper articles, my friend told me. If I would have known, I would have helped you. You can still help me, I said with a devilish plan in mind. I asked her to buy me a plane ticket back home, even though I had come unexpectedly. I always carried my wallet and my robes. I printed out the boarding pass and asked the handsome man to take me to the airport at once. He wholeheartedly agreed and asked me to come back for him when I had my life figured out. My friend met me at the airport with tears in her eyes. She brought me a change of clothes and asked me what the plan was. I asked her if she could have the police come to my house in an hour alone time for a reunion. I showed up to my old house and could see that Taylor had been busy with my fortune she inherited as my legal guardian after I died. There were several expensive sports cars in front of the house and very expensive statues that weren't there when I left. I went right up to the door and knocked, and was greeted by a butler. She told me that Miss Taylor was busy, but I told her to let Taylor know it was a family emergency from her daughter. I wish I got a picture of the look on Taylor's face. She screamed when she saw me. How is it? How are you? She stuttered. I asked her if she really thought nuns could just keep me forever. Nuns? She asked, genuinely confused. You were supposed to be dead. Carly, get down here now. Dead? A few minutes later, I heard the voice of a familiar woman. What are you going on about now, sister? I was she started. The woman froze when she looked at me. It was none other than the woman who had brought me to the church in the first place. They fought back and forth in front of me. They started throwing faces at each other and screaming. Apparently, Taylor paid her sister to get rid of me, but her sister couldn't go through with it and gave 50% of the hitman money to the nuns to take me in. Taylor turned and asked if anyone else knew I was here, and I got a very uncomfortable knot in my throat. I will never know if she was actually going to hurt me, because the moment she approached me, the cops knocked on the door. Even without the concrete proof of attempted murder, the fraud and robbery were going to keep her locked up for the rest of her life. Plus, she was going to be paying me back for many, many years. It was hard to get back in the groove of my old life, but I guess it's easier when you're rich. I ended up flying out the handsome man who rescued me to live in the country. He ended up hitting it off with my best friend that picked me up at the airport. It seems fitting that my heroes ended up together. As for me, I'm almost done with my university degree, and I'm happy to say I opened up my mansion as a giant foster home, so no one has to end up with evil stepmothers. My name ruined my life. It's cursed. As I was drinking my cup of coffee and looking at my future husband entering the coffee shop, news. I guess now you know how I felt 2 years ago. I was shocked to see such a message and wondered what it meant. I directly replied to that number to ask who it was. Yet there was no answer. Now before I continue with my drama, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe to our channel. I heard it would prevent you from having weird stomach growling noises for 10 years. I brushed it off and put my phone away. I looked at my fiancé as he sat in front of me. He looked confused. His smile was fake and his eyes were puffed up as if he cried all night. I asked him if everything was okay, yet he was silent. After a few moments of silence, he looked at me and said, "We need to talk." That serious look on his face made every ounce of my body shiver. He said with a frown on his face, "I want to cancel our wedding. I can't marry you." My jaw dropped, and my heart almost stopped. What? What do you mean cancel the wedding? But we are getting married tomorrow. You can't do this to me. He almost choked.
Okay.
And then he said, "I just figured I'm not ready to marry you yet. I'm sorry." I couldn't believe my ears. I looked at him with tears in my eyes and asked him why he was doing such a thing. But he only apologized and cried. I wanted to throw my coffee at him, but it was too delicious to waste. I ran out of the coffee shop, sobbing my eyes out. I rushed back home and broke the news to my parents. However, I lied and told them that I am the one who canceled the wedding. I thought by saying that it will make me feel better. However, it did not. My parents kicked me out of the house as punishment for losing a man like him and for putting them in such a disgraceful position. I was shocked by their reaction, but I was already heartbroken, so I just agreed and promised to leave. As I was packing my bags, the next day, I heard my mother apologizing for the people she already invited. When I got another message that said, "How does it feel apologizing to people and canceling everything?" I smashed my phone to the ground and burst into tears. Who the hell is this person? What does he want from me? I grabbed my things angrily and got out of the house without saying a word. I tried to contact Marcos, who is now considered my ex, to ask him about the messages, but his phone was already closed. I went to his place and, to my surprise, it was already empty. He moved out as if he was planning for the whole thing. I stood there helpless and wondered why. Why did he wait until the last minute and cancel everything? I felt like something was wrong. Weeks passed and I didn't receive any other messages. However, while I was at work, I was told to go downstairs because someone was looking for me. As I arrived, a complete stranger was standing in front of me. I said, "Yes, can I help you?" He answered in shock. "Are you Alapak?" I replied, "Yes." He stared in shock as I broke the silence, feeling weird. "Can I help you?" He immediately shook his head and said, "I am sorry, I thought you were someone else." He apologized and left the building. I felt strange, yet I returned to my office. I didn't pay much attention to what happened because he doesn't seem like a creeper at all. On the contrary, he was a good-looking guy and acted normally. As I was heading back home, I saw a man wearing black from head to toe coming out of the building where I live. And when I arrived at my apartment, I saw a note on the door saying, "I guess your heart is shattered into a million pieces as I was 2 years ago." I freaked out and called my best friend, Lily. I begged her to spend the night at my apartment because I was afraid as hell. I told her everything, and she was in a total shock.